Welcome back. We're still live to you from the third edition of the World Pension Summit here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Of course, you can join the conversations via Twitter. You can tweet at me. I'm at CTV Harriet. Abibosin will be glad to mind your business as well. You can also tweet at Biz Morning or at Channels TV. Let's get your comments and get your thoughts on the issues that have been raised at the ongoing World Pension Summit here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Of course, so much to talk about. Innovations. What innovations are actually shaping the pensions industry here in Nigeria? The DG of the Pensions Commission was here just a few minutes ago talking about what the agency is doing in this regard. So many conversations, dialogue back and forth, all positive, she says, in pushing the pension industry in the right direction. My next guest on the program is founder of World Pension Summit, Eric Egging. Thank you so much for joining me on the program this morning, Eric. It's been an interesting time out here, but what for you actually shapes the conversations that you heard yesterday at the summit?
Well, innovation is of course the major theme of the summit, and what you see is that if you look at the African perspective, the African nations have not so much legacy as the older pension funds, let's say in Europe or in the United States, and they can move quicker to a new era, to new situations. So I think that's very challenging, but also very appealing to many people.
Okay, but in a summary, what would you say, or how would you put the status of the pensions industry?
In Africa, globally? Well, yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't think there's a global pension industry. Every country has its own specific pension regulations, pension taxation, etc., etc. So I think you have a global network of pension systems in every country is a little bit different from another country, has started a little later than one country has started later than another country. So they can't be really compared, and that's something we really envisage on the World Pension Summit. So we bring together all these systems. There are a few things that they share, of course. People getting older, so aging is one of the red threads through all the discussions. We have a lower interest rate and also a very difficult period at this moment to get return on your investment, so that's another point. And what you see is that the internet has become a major part of the communications of pension funds to beneficiaries and the people who would like to contribute to a pension system.
You actually mentioned that right now most economies are facing a downturn.
Yeah.
So that's a global challenge.
Absolutely.
Well, what for you? How has this actually affected the contribution, schemes, or whether a retirement payment? Has there been any major issue that you think has been addressed sitting at the summit?
Yeah. Well, what you see is that at the summit we're talking about investment policy. We're talking about investment in infrastructure, things like that. That helps, but it's only a part of the pie. It's not something that is really the solutions to this worldwide economic crisis. I mean, Nigeria has a specific part of the economic crisis, and it's different from the US or Europe or other countries. So every time you have to shape your solutions to the specific needs in the countries itself.
But that's like the macroeconomic challenges that we're talking about.
Yeah.
What other challenges actually face the industry on a global scale?
Yeah, well, what you see, and especially, well, I'm from Europe, so I see that pension systems that have been established 50 or 60 years ago, they challenge with a new generation of pension contributors. So these people, these younger people, have to be appealed to pensions or the concept of pensions. And they are totally different from the older generation. So they want to share ideas, they want to be also more involved in what they're paying for. And I think one word could be magic there, is flexibility in pension schemes.
So in talking about the flexibility, what very critical roles do you think insurance and, for instance, lawyers as a legal part of it can actually play in helping this industry?
Yes, well, I think that it all starts with the pension fund design itself. If you have a very old-fashioned pension fund, You just pay, your employer pays, and that's it. But if you would like to pay a little bit more, many pension systems can't have that. It's impossible. They're sort of fixed to that. So if you build in more flexibility for people who have, for example, a better payment than they had a year ago, they can put something extra in, so they have a better pension pot at the end. That flexibility is still not there, and of course, if you talk about people who can help with that, actuaries, legal people, I mean, tax people, they should help to shape this new vision on how pension schemes should be developed.
So who should be sitting down together and talking about how this new pension scheme should be developed?
I think that it's time that the contributors sit more at the table than in the past. So the people who are really contributing to a pension system, the younger people, the younger generation, should be more involved. And that's really vital to create a pension system that's sustainable for the next 30 or 40 years.
So one of the other issue, apart from the fact that most countries are dealing with macroeconomic issues, is the fact that there's pressure on currencies.
Yeah.
And you use the currencies to make a contributory scheme,
Sure.
Contributions, whichever way you like it, whether it's in a dollar, whether it's in a pound or in the euros. But how much of this do you think will be affecting the amounts? Because every country, as you rightly pointed out, has a different percentage of what you should be contributing.
Yeah.
For Nigeria, it's actually 18%. But for you, do you think there should be a revision of this particular policy in terms of shifting what the contribution is? Should it be reduced, or do you think it should be increased at this time?
Well, that's a good question, but it's very difficult to answer just in one single solution, because if you talk about pensions, you talk about a period of 30 to 40 years contribution. So it's not about 1 year when the market is down, another year when the market is high. You should stay a little bit on the path. It's like an oil tanker which has a course, and you shouldn't change that course every week or every month. So it's a long-term investment, it's a long-term policy, and people have to deal with that. So don't change it overnight, don't change it because in the newspaper there's an economic crisis. Economic crises go. They come and they go. So people shouldn't be too afraid of that.
So for you, what would be the strategies at this time for industry operators to sit down and look at or fashion out to protect retirement savings and those who benefit?
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at most pension systems, they should be more appealing to younger people. So the young people who are on the internet, who do shopping on the internet, they deal on the internet, they're on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, they are often not appealed by the concept of a pension fund as is. So I think flexibility, I just said it, should be more built in the new ways of how pensions should be organized. And also the contribution of pension funds to communication to these target groups and these people should be really changed in a way that those people, those new generations, understand what's happening. And maybe, I said it yesterday in another interview, maybe the word pensions is old-fashioned. It's a postponed salary, it's a postponed money contribution to an era, to a phase in your life that you don't work anymore, but then you know that you get some money every month. And the word pension is a little bit old-fashioned.
So for you, if pension is old-fashioned, what should it be called then?
Well, maybe postponed salary could be a term.
Okay. So for you in the very short to medium term, what's your outlook for the industry? Do you think it will continue to be an enviable one, particularly since we're trying to see how much of the younger generation can be captured into this particular scheme using technology, even though technology has been, has its own good and bad sides, talking about cyber crimes and the rest of it. What for you in the short to medium term is your expectation for the industry?
I think the industry, especially if I look at the industry, at the established markets, not Africa. Africa is a different market, but established markets, they are changing rapidly, and they have to. They have to, because this younger generation will not contribute if they are not appealed to the system. So, well, what I said yesterday in a speech, the opening speech, I said, well, the internet has changed everything: shopping, living, pensions, everything. how you pay. So the world is in your pocket, in your smartphone. And you see the growth of the use of internet and the people who have smartphones in Africa. It's gigantic, it's enormous. So you have to think differently than before, and you have to stay at least in pace with the new generation to create more valuable contribution to those kind of people who are going to be old within 30 years.
So for you, Eric, everything lies in technology, everything lies in your mobile phone or your tablets?
That's one part. The other part is a mindset, the mindset of the people who are in charge of pension funds at the moment. If you look at the Western world, Africa is different, I just said, because there's a lot of young people working in the pension industry. But if you look at the industry in Europe or in the US, many old people, old school people work in that, and that has to change. Get more younger people think about how the concept of the pension funds could be filled in, because it's an important part of economics, it's an important part of life, it's an important part of how you want to live as a person.
Do you think that in the short term, if for instance this pension fund administrators look at how you can access, you can have pre-retirement access instead of waiting for it to mature when you retire from service, do you think that's one strategy they should be looking at that will encourage younger generation to actually key into the scheme?
That could be one solution, of course, but there are many ways to Rome, as we say. And there should be more ways, because flexibility is also make it accessible for large groups, just what Chinelo said. Also the self-employed and the informal sector should be more attracted to these kind of systems. If you look at the Netherlands, we had a very small group of informal sector. Now, in the last 10 years, that has grown to over 1.2 million people who are in need for, because they were fired, they had to start their own business, and at a certain period of 10 years, it has grown enormously. So we have to attract those kind of people.
Thank you so much, Eric, for joining me on the program, of course, and shedding more light on some of those issues which will continue to be discussed at this ongoing pension summit. Eric Egging is a founder, World Pension Summit, of course, sharing his thoughts on developments in the industry and what most countries on a global scale are doing at this time. But Business Morning continues in just a moment. My next guest is also co-founder of the World Pension Summit. He'll be having conversations with us on innovations and trends that are shaping the pension industry here in Africa, and we're bringing it closer home to Nigeria. Join us again.